I just got back from watching the Thunderbolts. These are my thoughts. Hello, YouTube. Axioman here once again, and just got back. Uh, as I'm recording this, it's been about an hour since I got back home, and the movie. This is a no spoiler review, so I'm not going to spoil it. It's way too soon for the general audience. This movie just came out Thursday night, which is at the time of this recording, it's still technically Thursday night. So I'm not going to do a spoiler review. This is non-spoilers. No need to turn this video off if you haven't seen the movie. But these are my thoughts and opinions on what I just saw. First of all, the movie is solid. It's a solid movie, and I don't just mean as it pertains to movies in general. No, I'm very specifically talking about the MCU. Okay, so uh, I felt the need to say that because sometimes we get into this mode where we're looking at these films as if they are not part of the MCU. There are films out there like Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Iron Man, Winter Soldier, Captain America 2, Winter Soldier, that kind of go above the stratosphere of the MCU, and they are so groundbreaking. They're so good that they do take on a life of their own. And yet they are still part of the MCU. So I am talking specifically just within the realm of the MCU, just to be specific. So, with that said, as an MCU film, this movie is solid, especially in comparison to a lot of things that have recently come out from the MCU uh, during COVID and now post COVID. I'm saying COVID specifically because that's when things kind of went off the rails, in my opinion. Not all of Marvel or MCU's fault, but then some of it, yeah. Some of it was derailed because of all the reshoots and everything that they had to do to adjust to this crazy world that was happening at the time. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about Thunderbolts. So, as it pertains to the Thunderbolts, not only was it a solid film within the MCU, I don't have a rating system yet. I know people use stars. Some people use like 8.5, 9, 7 point, and then some people even go into like point 0.2, point 0.3, point 0.4. I need to develop my own system, my own Axiom Ant system, which that just gave me an idea, which I plan to do in the future. But for now, I'm just saying that it's a solid film. And more importantly than that, or just as important, it has a strong finish, in my opinion, a very strong finish. The end credit scenes, there's a mid and there's an end credit scene. That's not a spoiler. That's been all over the internet already. And just to say that is not necessarily a spoiler, in my opinion, because if you recall, we were used to that. These films are going on 20 years at this point, which is crazy for me to just say. But these are going on 20 years of filmmaking. We always had a mid credit scene and an end credit scene. A lot of the more recent Marvel films have not had one or the other. I think one even didn't have any. So this is just kind of going back to formula. We had a mid-credit scene, an end credit scene, and the mid-credit is the end credit is worth the wait, in my opinion. It's worth it. It is a little like, whoa. But let's talk about the film itself. I think what the film got right in many instances is the juggling of so many characters, right? Now, we expect that from the Russo brothers and James Gunn, right? They've done it relatively well, sometimes way better than well, to the point of excellent. I'm looking at you, Guardians 1, and of course, Avengers. But they've done this film in particular, the Thunderbolts, with uh, you know without James Gunn, without the Russo brothers, they've done a good job of juggling so many different characters, so many different personalities, actors, actresses. I think the balance in the film is on point to the story, to the story that's being told, and with the, I mean, let's face it, right? To the B, C, D characters, right? It's like, I don't want to watch John Walker. I don't want to watch Yelena, like Red Guardian, really? Like, what? Like, I don't care about these characters. So, that kind of mindset in mind, the fact that this film was able to not only juggle their personalities and their characters, but make them likable. Yes, I will say that the film did make me like them. It made me care about them. A feat not easily accomplished. James Gunn had his, crying over a dying tree. I'm Groot, and then a raccoon, and then, of course, the Russo brothers with what they did. Enough said. So I think this film, for the task at hand, I think did an excellent job of that in particular. And then there's the story itself. The story has a lot of baggage, right? It has a lot of baggage. It has the entire MCU and everything leading up to it. And I think it did a good job of just focusing on itself and not worrying too much about everything outside of it, but also not just being oblivious of it. One of the faults that a lot of these connected universe, connected films, especially in the MCU, is that sometimes it loses track of itself. Like the whole, there's a giant celestial sticking out of the Indian Ocean. And how long did it take them to address that? It wasn't until just recently with, Cap 4, when you're like, okay. So sometimes there's these hiccups, but I think this film did such a good job, an excellent job of being its own film, being likable, whether it's character likable or story plot, following like easily along, and not too bloated. And it did a good job of that itself, tying itself into the arc, and yet not being like overcome, just not being over bloated with it. So, I mean, that is not an easy task either. So, good job. I think that was well done. The villain or villains, again, no spoilers. I'm not saying whether there's a plural or not. That's something that I'll get into on the spoiler, because there's a lot of things that you can argue here as far as who the villain or villains were and are. But I felt like that was also well balanced. Again, it's not that I thought it was the best film ever, or within the context of being an MCU film, but because of all the factors and the context, in just the context of what I've just described. It's not easy to make a solid, good film in the MCU anymore. It takes talented writers in order to fit this all in and make it jive and mold in accordance with everything else we've already seen and everything else we're already aware of, if you've been following along to the extent of that some of us have. So that is why I say that this is a good film. Good film. MCU, just within the world. And then when you tie it into the end credit scene, just, it's jiving. It's jiving. Last but not least, is this film a must watch? Let's go. Hey, you need to go watch this. I would argue that post Endgame, no films are like that anymore in the MCU, because there's the buildup of the three first phases, ending with Endgame, was just too grandiose at this point. So phase 4, and as we go into phase 5, I think this is phase 6. I've lost track, honestly, even as I'm making this video. I know I could just Google it, but I've lost track. I will argue that none of these are must watch. But that is for you to find out, for you to know, and for you to decide, right? I mean, if you're invested in Ant-Man, then Quantumania was a must watch for you. if you're invested in Doctor Strange, Black Panther, in this case, you're invested in into this world, whether it be Cap, Winter Soldier. I mean, if it's a Winter Soldier thing, sure, of course, Thunderbolts is for you, right? You want to know what Bucky's up to. So it just depends at this point. So for me to say or argue that this is a must watch, it's for you to decide. And I know that sounds like a cop out. It's not, only because of what I just explained. It's for you. Before, I would argue that it's a must watch because it was leading up to something. Right now, I feel like the MCU is in limbo. Like, we know where it's going with Fantastic Four, and and then the new phases that are coming up. There's rumors about X-Men, and then of course there's Doom, Avengers Secret Wars. There's a lot, but there hasn't been a lot of connecting to it, like a build up, like we saw in the first three phases. They were clearly leading into the Infinity Saga, the Infinity Gauntlet saga. These just feel like single issue comics, like there's no real build up to anything, and that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but that's why it's hard to say that these are must watch. This is a must watch. That's why it's hard to say that. It's a must watch if you want it to be a must watch. Me, they're all must watches because I enjoy watching all the content, whether it's the shows or the films. For me, it's always going to be a must watch. So I'm not going to sit here and make this video and tell you that this is a must watch. It's for you to decide, honestly. I would tell you that you're going to have fun. That's one thing that I will say. You will enjoy the film and you will have fun watching these characters interact and fight their villains, and get to the end and then watch that end credit scene. And I think it'll leave a smile on your face. At the very least, you'll be satisfied. Who knows? You might just smoke a cigarette. Satisfaction achieved. That's it for this video. I will be making a spoiler filled review in a couple of days, maybe at the end of the week. May the 4th is happening on Sunday, so all kinds of Star Wars stuff is going to be happening that day. But for this video, that's the end of it. As always, collect what you love what you collect. I'll see you guys in the next one.